screen. All right. So, like I said, welcome to class again tonight. It's a long night, even though we'll try to be as fast as possible because we're designing two different pages. I'm going to be designing this page for those who are already used to HTML, CSS. This might be like a walkover. So don't get bored. For those who are new to this, try to learn as much as you can. All right. So we're going to design this page in a short time, and then we're also going to design this page also, right, tonight. So because we're designing two pages, let's get started. I don't want to waste time talking about different things. But for those who have questions for Surge, those who could not get Surge to work and all of that, after this class, we'll quickly look at that. We'll review it, and I'll be able to help you resolve any issue you have on Surge and on GitHub for those who have questions. So let's get started, right? So we're going to start with the Facebook page, right? So it's very easy. Like I said the last time, when you want to start any page, any website you want to design, you need to break them down into divs or blocks, right? So if you see what we have here, they are mostly in blocks. So I'm going to try to draw a bit of boxes around this screen. So first of all, we have a big white box here. Let me use a red marker. We have a big red box right here that covers everything. More like, just this big red white box, very wide box that is housing everything on the screen, right? Then after that, we now have two sections. We have this first div up here, right? This first one, sorry for the lines, right? We have this first div, and then we have this second one down here that is housing the entire footer, right? Something like this. So that's it. So we have two rows. So we have the first outer div, which is this guy. We have the second outer, the inner div, and then the inner div. So this number one is the outer div. This number two is the topmost half of the divs, and then we have row three. Then inside this row two, let me call this number two. Inside this number two, we have two halves here. So we have this half, right, and we have this half. Yeah, that's how I imagine when I'm designing any page. And of course, inside this, you can then do all of these cards, and here you can do that. So that's all. Then the rest of this is just links to different pages and an HR and all that. So let's get started. So that's what we're going to do. So I'm going to start by creating a new project. I'm going to, do I create a new project? I'm going to just go into new file. I'm going to go into new file. I'm going to call this a new text file. It gives me a blank page, right? And on that blank page, I'm just going to quickly spin up my basic HTML structure, right? I have my head, I have my body tag, right? So that's my basic HTML structure. So once that is done, I'm going to click Ctrl S and I'm going to save. And I'm going to save inside my foundational class, like I said. I always save inside the foundational class so that I can use Surge to load that up at the end of the class. So I'm going to save inside there. I'm going to call this facebook.html, right? So we have our facebook.html saved, right? So let's see what the next thing we want to do. So I've said three things we want to do, or three boxes or four boxes we need. I've said that we have this number one, which is the outer box. We have this number two, which is the inner box, the upper part. We have number three, which is the footer. We have number four, which is the left half of the number two, and number five, which is the right half of number two, right? So that's how I'm going to imagine it. So let's quickly spin up those divs. Divs are container. For those who are just joining us for the first time tonight, in previous lessons, we've talked about how you can use span and divs. And I explained the difference between a span and a div, right? So you can watch the previous videos to get those clarifications. But divs are just boxes, right? That's how you make boxes or containers in HTML. So let's go back to our blank new screen. We write our HTML code within the body tag, right? While we have all our assets and references and links and meta tags and all of that within the head part. So watch the video. If you are new and this is your first HTML class or your first class joining us tonight, just watch the previous videos and you will be able to catch up. Let me just mute someone. Someone has a background sound. Let's see if I can pick that person and mute everyone. Yes. All right. So as I was saying, I'm going to get started by quickly spinning up all of these div 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right? So let me push this screen on one side. so that I'll be able to quickly see what it looks like on the other side. So I'm going to leave it like this. Then let me remove this annotation so that let me see. I wish this thing could have like a hide stuff. Okay, it's saved anyway, so I can clear it. I'll clear my drawings. Okay, so yeah, so I'm going to do that so that we can see very well. So I'm going to reduce my coding screen to the left so that we can kind of follow along. So now let's quickly look at the outer box. So I'm going to start with the outer box, if one, right? So I'm going to call this more like the outer box or the container, everything. Inside that container, we have two divs or two rows, right? I'm going to call this first row. We're going to call it maybe the main, let's just call it the main container or something like that, like the main body. That's the main part of it, where we have the form and the Facebook stuff. Then we have the second half of the div, which is the footer, right? So you can see the way I drew the boxes the other time. We have the outer container, which is housing everything. Then inside the container, we have two parts. We have the main upper part, and then we have the footer at the bottom where we have all these links. Then in that main part, up there, we have two divs, also two boxes. I told you one is on the left, and then the other is on the right. That's how I imagine it. So we can call this maybe left, right? You can call it anything. These are just IDs. Like I said, if you are new to this, don't feel like what's all this. Just watch the previous video, you will get it. So these are IDs, right? So this is div representing the right half of the main part, and then the left, which is the left part of the main container, right? So now that we have all of this, if we refresh and load this up in our HTML page on our browser, we won't see anything because divs are just empty boxes. They don't really show anything, except maybe they have borders, border and all of that, border color, border width. So right now we won't see anything. So let's quickly add some additional content. So I'm going to go into this left, which is this Facebook part. I'm just going to spin up a basic text called Facebook, right? I'm going to spin up that, and then I'm going to spin up a paragraph that contains Facebook helps you connect. Let me break this. Connect and share with people in your life. Full stop. Right? So that's that. So that's what we have on the left div. You can see that that's what we have on the left div, right? And on the right div, which is this box here, what we have in there is an input field with a placeholder. The placeholder is this tiny little thing that you see here. Once I click on it, it disappears, right? But I type, you can see it disappears. That is a placeholder. So if it were to be a text, if it was not a placeholder and it were to be a text, if I type, I will have to remove the text before I can type, or a placeholder will disappear. So I'm going to call that email and email address or phone number, right? And then we have another input field right below that. I didn't close that properly. Right, so we have another input field right there. And it also have another placeholder, right? And this placeholder this time is called password. And then we have right below that a button, more like a submit button. And on top of that, we have a login like that. So we can give this button an ID. Maybe we call it a submit button or like a login button. Let's just call it login. So that we can style that with CSS and make it look exactly like this. Then below that button, we have a little small tiny paragraph called forgotten password, right? And then because it's a link, we can wrap it in a link, right? We can wrap that in a link and call it forgotten password, right? So that's it. Then we have what else? We have a little line, which is an HR. This little tiny line you're seeing here can just be created with an horizontal line. This is an HTML tag. For those who got the cheat sheet, I shared an HTML cheat sheet earlier in the course, like the last two classes, and I also shared a CSS cheat sheet also. So you find all of these tags there. So if you're not familiar with an HR, you can look that up. So lastly, after the HR, we have another button. And the button this time is create new account, right? We can call this, so that we can style it, we can call this account, right? We can call that an account so that we can style that. And outside all of this, outside all of this right box, we have this text here, but I won't put it outside of the right box because it still needs to be on the right hand side. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to wrap this whole thing in a new div so that I can now have this stuff outside of this card. So I need this white card here. I need this white card so that this creates a page for a celebrity brand or business will be outside of this white card. And the way I've structured it now, because I have just this div right as the only thing I have separating this left from the right, I will not be able to achieve this separation. So I'm going to have to introduce a new div to wrap this whole thing on right there. So I'm going to call that card, right? And then that will wrap the entire text here. You can see that this is what I have. So let me just space out this a little bit more so that you can see. So yeah, so this is the card now. So this card is wrapping the entire input box, password, HR button, and below that card, I can then introduce this create a page, for a celebrity brand or business. All right, so we're done. So that's how I think about doing my stuff. So we have it. Let me show you. So when you can see the way I'm doing it. So now I'm not thinking about CSS. I'm just structuring the framework. So let's say, for example, I just want to show you a Figma design. So this is what you get. So project that you'll be working on, you'll be getting Figma designs like this. Let me go into my recently stuff. You'll be getting Figma designs where a client tells you this is what we want to design, and you should be able to design it, right? So when you are trying to design a new project, you need to be able to break it down into boxes. Imagine the boxes. How do they come together? So for example, if you imagine this project now, what is the composition of this project? What makes up this project? You can imagine it always starts with an outer container all the time. There's always a big box that houses everything. If I close everything, you can see everything is housed inside one single container, right? So it starts from there. It's from that main container, which is this main. Let me just draw an annotation on the screen. So there is always this one big container that houses every, right? So it's in that big container, you now start dividing it. So here now we now have this first row, which is the header. Then you have this second half, which stops somewhere around here. And then below that's like the main area. Then we have the footer. This entire stretch is the footer. That's how you break. So always imagine your stuff in boxes, and then you can then start dealing with the header, which is the logo, and then this account stuff, and then like that. So that's what I'm going to show you. So always imagine your stuff in that kind of a way, right? So it helps you a lot. All right, let's clear this screen again. Clear everything. Clear. Let's go. All right, so let's continue to where we stopped. So we're here. And I've said that I've just wrapped everything in a container, and then everything is ready to show up. Everything on this main area is ready to show up. So, but it's not styled with CSS, so it's going to look very ugly. So far, I believe there are no questions. Yeah. So I will just load up my page. Let me go into my foundational class and load up my page. Facebook.html. I will just load it up right here. All right, so you can see how ugly it looks right now. Everything looks very ugly because we have not introduced CSS, right? So we need to introduce CSS right now. So I'm going to come to my top header part here. I'm going to do my style. And then within my style tag, I can start writing my CSS easily, right? So the first thing I want to do is to check what I need to do first, which is this background, this gray area, this gray background, right? I need this kind of color. So what I do is just to find out the color code. I don't need to stress my brain. I just check the color code for this main background area. I'm going to find out what color code they use there. All right, it looks like white. Is it white? I don't think it's white. It's a bit off-white, but it looks like white. Let's see what that color looks like. What's the color there? Okay, I could just pick the color anyway. I don't need to stress. So what I'm just going to do is just pick any color on the screen, like this one, for example. I'm going to pick on my color picker. I'm going to click on the screen. it gives me the color code exactly as it is. I'm going to copy that, and that's the color code it used. So I'm just not going to bother. So now I can go to my container, which is this guy. I can go to my container, or actually it's not my container, it's the main. Because if you remember, there is a main and there is a footer. If you remember, the footer is not the same color as this main area. This main area has a different color from this footer. So it's the main that has this color. So I'm going to tell the main, which is an ash. If you are first coming to CSS today, when you are trying to style an ID, you use an ash. When you are trying to style a class, you use a dot, right? So now we're styling an ID. So I'm going to use an ash and a main. The main is the name of this particular div, and I'm trying to style that, right? So that is an ash. The ID is what gives us the ash. The main is the name. So then you open a curly brace, you close the curly brace. Right in between that, you have your style. So the style we want to do now is called background color, right? And the color we want to paste there is the color I just tried to identify from the page. The same thing, if you were doing a project and they gave you a Figma design, for example, this one, if this were to be a Figma design that you're supposed to be working on, you can pick the color code. So let's say I'm trying to design this page. You can pick the color code of this button by just clicking on it, right? So I can't do anything until I log in, but I don't want to log in. So, but assuming you were logged in, you can just click on this button. It will give you some options on the right, and you can pick the color of this button and use it in your code. So that's how it works. So you don't have to think about the color, just pick the color and use, right? So now we have the color here, and that's the background color. The next thing we want to do is to separate the left from the right. So I'm going to introduce some bit of width to this main area, right? I'm going to say width is about 100%, right? And I'm going to open up the main, right? I'm going to open up the main and separate the left from the right using also width. So I'm going to come here, say ID left, right? And then the left, I'm going to give it a width of about, let's say, is this equal halves? I'm not sure what the size of this level. It looks like this is about 50% and 50%, but I'm just going to try that. So 50% on the left, and then on the right, maybe another, let's just say 45% actually, about 45% and a 45%. All right, so that means that I'm saying the width of my left-hand side here is 45% of the entire screen. And then the width of this right-hand side is about 45% of the entire screen, right? That's what I'm going to do. And then I'm going to do another thing. I'm going to say something at display. Let me show you what will happen before I do that display so that I will explain and you understand. So let me refresh right now. Okay, if I say I refresh, but nothing has happened so far, because right now, these guys, they are both divs. And I told you from the last class that divs naturally will not allow anybody to stay beside them. So divs by default, their display is blocked. So they will not allow anything to stay beside them. So that's why you can see, even though if I inspect this now, they are actually 45% wide. Let me show you the left. You can see the left. See the left right here. The left is 45% of the screen, but because it's a display block, you can see down here, display is blocked. It still fills the entire screen up until the end, even though there is nothing on the right. It still fills that. And the same thing applies for the right. The right is also 45% long, but the display is blocked. So they both will not allow each other to stand beside each other. So we need to change this display to inline block. Inline blocks means that it should not fill up the entire space that it occupies. Right? If you can see that yellow area there, that yellow area is an area that can be, allowed for other things to stay there by changing to display inline block. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to make this display inline block like so. And then I need to close this. And I'm going to do the same for this guy. So now that I've done this, if I refresh now, they should jump up and stay beside each other. Can you see that? That's the power of display inline block, right? The next thing I want to do is to create some bit of room on the side of the container, which is the main area. So I'm going to apply that padding to the container itself, which is what is housing everybody, right? Okay, no, I will apply it to the main instead, not that one. So I'm going to do a padding of about let me call it, maybe what I can even do to centralize it, let me do imagine 0 auto to centralize my imagine, and then I'm going to give this about 90% right there. Let's see what that gives us. Okay, because this has a background color. Okay, I won't apply it to that. That's not what I want to do. So instead, I will do 100%, and then I'll apply a padding. Padding will do well for me. So let's do a padding. So the padding will be like 100 pixel all around. Let's see what that gives us. Yeah, so that's it. So that gives us 100% all around, all 4 sides, right? So if you open up this, you see the padding, right? So that's what we'll have. So the next thing we want to do, let me see if anybody has a question so far. No questions, no questions, good. All right, so what we're going to do next is to try to introduce the logo here. There's a Facebook logo that we have right here that looks like this, a Facebook logo and the Facebook text. So we're going to have to make this thing look the way they look right here. So I've tried to, so this logo is an image or an SVG.
Hello, sir.
You can just,
hello, sir. Sorry to cut you. Are you there, sir?
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah.
All right, sir.
You need
So
to
when
raise your hand if you want to ask a question.
Oh, I was trying to answer when you said who had a question, but my network.
Okay.
When do you use idea? When do you use class? Like you didn't use class. Like just explain to me that class.
Yeah, I explained that in the previous classes. I said classes are used when you are styling more than one element. Like for example, this input boxes here, right? You could style them together, which I'm going to do very shortly. You could style them together with a class because they share the same attributes. So you use classes when you are styling more than one element on the page. So it's more like you are styling more than one thing. But when you are styling only one thing uniquely, then you use an ID. So an ID only is used for styling one item on the screen, while classes are used for styling multiple items at the same time. You understand?
All right, thank you.
All right. You're welcome. So let's go ahead. So like I was talking about the Facebook logo here. So I've downloaded the logo. You can just right click on the logo and save image as on your system, right? So I've downloaded mine. It's inside my foundational class. I created an assets folder, and this is the Facebook logo here. So I'm just going to link to that. So I'm going to go right where I use a text to represent Facebook. So I'm going to change that to an image instead of a text. I'm going to make it an image source. And then that is assets. I think I call the folder assets, and then that's facebook.svg, right? So I'm going to make the width of, I'm going to style it, right? I'm going to style it inline styling. I'm going to call the width about maybe about 200 pixels if I'm right. Let's just check that out. I'm going to come back here, refresh, and then we have this. So I think it's smaller than what we have. This is bigger, so I'm going to make it about 300 instead. Let's see what that looks like. Okay, that looks more like it. So the next thing we want to do is that we want to quickly style. So this one needs to go bigger. You can see right here, it needs to be very big. So I'm going to just right click, inspect. So I prefer doing this thing real time so that I can just copy my styling from the console to my style area here. Because if I keep styling here, I'm just assuming what the final thing will look like, and I will have to keep refreshing to see what my styling here looks like. So I will style, I will refresh, so that gets a bit, boring. So what I do is that I just come to the page, right click, inspect, and then I style right within this element here. I can style everything I want. Once it looks satisfactory to me, I copy the style and I paste it in my code. So let me show you how that works. So now I can click on anything. Then I click on this paragraph here. I come here, I give it a font size of about 20 pixel. I can make it grow as I want. So I think it's about this size on the other side, something about this size, yeah. So I can copy this now and take this to my code. And this is a paragraph inside my left. Can you see the way I'm going to style this? So this is a paragraph, because I have other paragraph, I think there's another paragraph down here. So if I just use a paragraph tag, which is a P tag, if I just use a P tag, it's going to affect all my Ps. If I just do this and I paste this, it's going to affect all my paragraphs on the page, but that's not what I want. Let me show you that. If I refresh now, you can see both of them have increased to 30 pixels, but that's not what I want. I only want to style the paragraph inside my left side. So I can do this and say the left and then the P. So this is referring to the P inside the left container, right? So if I refresh this now, only the P on the left should take on that styling. You can see that. So the next thing we want to do, I think there is a bit of a space around this image. Let me just check what that looks like. There's a space around it. Yeah, that's correct. There's a space around it, you can see. So the image itself has a space around it. So that's why it's a bit shifted to the right. And I don't want that to happen. So what I can do is to create an artificial padding around my text so that I can match up with this. So I'm going to go to this same P, which is the same P that we are talking to right here. So I'm going to create an artificial padding on the left, maybe like a 40 pixel, just to shift it so that it matches the Facebook guy. All right, I think that's too much. Like I said, I prefer doing it in real time. I'm going to inspect again, and then I'm going to manually adjust that so that it fits into where I want it to fit. That's about 28. All right, so that's that. The next thing I want to do is to work on the right-hand side here. I'm going to work on the right-hand side here. So let's see what that looks like. So we have this card, this white card, and then we have all these input boxes standing on each line all by themselves. They are not staying side by side, right? So we need to force them to stay on each line. And that's very easy. I told you in the last class, I think I did something like that. To make stuff stay on each line is just to introduce a div. A div by default will not allow anything to, to stay on their line. But that's actually an amateur way of doing it, or a harder way of doing it. So since you already have CSS and you can style stuff, this is an input box, this is an input box, this is a button, this is a paragraph. You can just tell them, you can just come here and enforce that all your input buttons, all your input boxes and your buttons, their width should be 100%. Once you do that, it's going to force them to, fill up the space like that, just like that, right? So that's that. The next thing you want to do is that you want to style, like I said, you want to style all of these input boxes to have this nice look of curved border radius, spaced around and all of that. So let's quickly do that. I'm going to create another input. Then I'm styling the two inputs together this time around. So I'm going to introduce, since they all have border radius, both input and button, I'm going to just introduce the border radius up here so that both the input and the button will both share this border radius, just the way they are sharing the width. So I'm going to call that 6px. Then I'm going to introduce a margin bottom to all of them, maybe like a 10px. And then I'm going to introduce a padding to all of them, maybe like it's 20 on the top, and left and right will be like 20, maybe 20 on the left and right, something like that. So let's see what this looks like. So now I'm affecting both the input and the button. I will come back to the button alone. So let's refresh and see what this gives us. Looks big, so I'm going to reduce this on the top and bottom. Does it really look big? Let me check. Is this fine? Okay, it's bigger. It's a way bigger. So I'm going to reduce padding top and bottom. I think the 20 was okay actually. Let's see. All right. So the next thing is the border. I'm going to remove the border to be 0. Right, so that removes the border all the way. You can see that, right? We're getting there. The next thing we want is a tiny little border that is very light. So I'm going to try to get this exact color of border. So I'm going to inspect, look for that border in particular. It's a gray, very light little gray color. I think we can find that color somewhere here. Where are you? We need the light little color. Where is the color? Where is the color? Where is the color? Okay, this is the color. So we can copy that color. It's actually a white color. So we come here and then we can introduce that to the input field. So it's a border of 1 pixel solid and that color, right? This is the color code. It's very close to white, but it's not white. It's a light gray, very light gray. So if I refresh that, I should get that color. You can see it. That's a nice looking color there. So that's how I pick colors from sites. So if you go to a site, any site at all, you can inspect and check the colors that you need so that you get that same feel. Because if you want to start trying to pick the color, it might be difficult to pick that color, right? So the next thing is this button. We need to get the color of blue. There is a shade of blue for Facebook, so I'm going to pick that color also. This is the color, I guess. Let me look for another one. Okay, this is the color here. So I'm going to pick that color. Then we go to our styling. We're going to style this button. I think I gave the button a name the other time. I think I called it something. What is it? I called it login, right? So I'm going to use the login attribute to style that. So let's use an ID. And then the background color is the color I just got from Facebook. This is the Facebook blue, right? So, and then if I refresh, I should get that background color. Then this text is white and it's big, right? It's a bit big and bold and white. So let's just make that happen by seeing it in real time. I'm going to inspect on top of that. I'm going to come here and make the color white. I'm going to come here and make the font size a bit bigger, maybe like a 20, yeah. Then the font weight about, let's call it bold, something like that. So I'm going to copy all of this new one I introduced and paste it right in my code. That's how I do it in real time so that I can see the effects. I don't have to try it here, refresh, try it here, refresh. I just, do it right here, see what it looks like in real time and paste it within my code. You can see we are getting close. We're getting close. So what I'm going to do is to force my main, this main that is 100%, I think I need to still force it. I'm going to switch something here. I'm going to give my container. Because of, let me show you why I'm going to change this. My brain is telling me something. If I maximize this, see what happens. This is not what we want to achieve, right? Because we've told this left and this right to be 45% each. So this left is 45%. This is 45%. I think 45% is too big, right? So I'm going to have to max out the maximum width of this entire main area. I want to reduce the width to something like maybe a 740 or something like that. So I want to reduce the width of the main. But when I reduce the width of the main, it's going to affect the background color. The background color will also be reduced. Let me show you that. So if I come here and I reduce the width, so I need the width of this thing to be like a 70% of the entire screen, right? So if I do that, this is what we want, something like this. I think I even need it to still be smaller, maybe like a 60% of the entire screen, something like that. Yeah, so this looks more like it. So this is what I want. But you can see that the background color is moving with it. So I need to switch this background color to be the color of the container itself and not just this main. That's what I wanted to do. So I'm going to have to introduce the container, and then I will move the background color outside of the main and then stick it in the container so that it does not move with the width of the main. So if I refresh this now, I should get that. Then the next thing I want to do is to centralize this guy here. So I'm going to introduce a margin. I think it's not this one, it's to the main itself. I'm going to introduce a margin 0 auto to centralize this box. So now it's going to jump to the center. That's what we want to achieve. Yeah, that's what we want to achieve. That's what we want to achieve. That's what we want to achieve. So the next thing we want to do now is to put this right-hand side in a card, in a white card, just the way this one looks. I think this is one way smaller. So I have to still reduce. So maybe this is not 45%. I'm going to reduce that to right-hand side, maybe like a 35%, right? Let's put it in a 35%. Yeah. Yeah, something like that, 35%. So we're going to house this in a box, in a card, right? I'm going to house that in a card. So there is a card. I created a card that we house this guy here, and I called it a card. So that's all I need. You can see it here. It's housing the input boxes and the button. So I already created that in mind. So I'm going to just call that card and then give it a background of white, which is the card. If I refresh, I get my card. You can see it, but now it's I need to shift, give it some spacing. So it needs some spacing all around, maybe like a 15 px all around, so that it can, yeah, that's it. So, and then it needs to have a curved edge, just like this. It needs to have a curved edge, so we can introduce our border radius. I believe you are learning. If you are learning, please, I want to hear your voice quickly. If you are learning.
We are learning, sir.
All right.
Thank you, sir.
I am
Thank you.
learning, sir.
All right. Thank you. Thank you. Says thank you for staying there. All right. So we're almost there. The next thing we want to do is this nice looking forgotten password needs to be at the center. This create new button needs to be at the center, needs to be green. So we need to quickly do all of that. So I'm going to centralize this. This is easy. To make that forgotten password to stay at the center is simply, where's the forgotten password? It's simply to make a paragraph inside the card to be center. So I'm going to say the paragraph inside the card with text align center. That's all. It's going to jump right straight to the center. Then this button needs to have a background of green, but I'm not sure of the shade of green. So I'm going to take the color of green from here. I'm just going to right click. Where's my right click? Right click on this guy. I'm going to look for that button. And then I'm going to pick the color of the button. There's a green shade of color. Where is the green? Where is the green shade of color? Where is the green? Where is the green? Where is the green? This is the green. All right. So let's go and use that green color. So I'm going to come back here. I think I gave this guy a name. I called it account. Check. I called it account. And then I can give it a background color of that same color I just wrapped. So that's it. So now if I change this, if I refresh this, I get a green. The text is white and I think it's actually smaller. The text is white and is bold. So what happens is that this guy is not 100%. So because we've applied 100% to all our input boxes, if you remember right here, all our buttons are 100%. That's why it's stretching. So I'm going to negate that because this account now, I will tell you that the width is not 100%. The width should be auto. And then the color of the text on top should be white. And then the font size of that should be like 20 pixels. And the font weight should be like bold. Yeah, so if I get all of that, it should do that exactly. And then we need it to be centralized also. So I'm going to do a margin 0 auto. Anytime you want to centralize a box or a button of such, it does do 0 auto for it. It's going to jump straight to the center. It's not so it's inside what? Let me see what it's inside what.
But we can't hear you again, though.
Sorry, you did not hear me again?
Yes, sir.
No. Seriously?
So I thought it's text align you use to put it to the center.
Yeah, you can use that, but you will not apply it to this account. If you want to use text align, you have to apply it on the parent. So text align works on the parent and not the child. So I can apply that on the card. Let me apply text align center on the card itself. And apply text align center on the card and it should move. Yeah, so that's it. So you can apply it on the parent. If I apply text align on the child, which is the account, which is the button itself, it will not move. Right, so that's it. So we are close. Let's remove this underline. Anytime you have an anchor tag, by default, the browser will apply this underline to represent the link, but that's not what we want because if you look at our stuff here, it's blue and there is no underline. So when you mouse over it, underlines, but it's not underlined by default. So let's make it blue and remove that stuff. So I'm going to go to my card P and I'm going to say text decoration, none, and then color is blue. You can refresh. Is that my color blue? That's my card P, right? Let me check what that is. Forgotten password. Yeah, P. I think is why is not answering? Okay, let me apply it on the page and see myself. So I'm going to come here. Oh, it's an A. It's not the. So I'm sorry. So it's not the P now. These guys are not applied to the P, but the A, the anchor tag. So I'm going to go a step further, card PA. Yeah, so that's it. So you can paste. Oh, I've lost what I pasted. Okay, let me just do it again. So the color is the same blue color of this the button. So I'm going to copy the color from the button. Where's our button? This is the button. Yeah, the login button, the same blue shade. So I'm going to use that color on the A. Then I'm going to say, what else? Text decoration is none. So once I've done that, if I refresh now, we should get what we want. Yes, that's it. So the last thing we want to do this guy at the top, they want to shift this space down. They want to centralize this in the middle. That's it. So we want these guys to come up. They want to centralize this guy and make, how many of them are bold? Just create a page folder, centralize this. So let's just do that quickly. So what I'll just do is to centralize the right. I'll just centralize the right. Where's the right? Where's the right? So just centralize the right, center. Then I'm going to make, go to the create a page and make this guy wrapped in a bold tag. Create a page. That's all. So that can be centralized and wrapped in a bold tag. So that's it. Then this guy needs to come up. So let's see how we get them to come up. I'm just going to look for how to bring them up. So this is the main, and this is the left. This left guy here needs to be aligned to the top. So we need to call something called vertical align top, and that's it. So you can see, very easy. It's applied to the left. So let's take it to our code, look for left, where's left, and then apply vertical align. That's it. So now let's just create a bit of spacing between the left and right, because as you can see here, there is space enough there. They're not just gumming together like this. So I'm going to just push this left to the right. So I'm going to come down here, go into my right, and then give some bit of margin left, maybe margin left like 30, 40, something like that. Yeah, that's it. So questions? Questions? Because of time, I'll just go straight into the Google side. I won't spend time on the footer because the footer is easy. You can see the footer is just a list of some items. So it's just Ahref, all of, I think if you can understand the way I did all of this should not be something hard to do at all. So I will leave it to you to complete the rest on your own. So you need to do this page on your own as an assignment and finish up the footer part, right? So, but that is it. So you can see this is our own. This is the original. I think this thing is not too far apart. Let me see why our own is far apart. There's a huge space. I think there is a margin somewhere there. I think, okay, yes, is this A? I'm going to have to remove it. So it's not supposed to be inside an H1. That's what's creating that huge space. Because it was formerly a text, that's why I left it there, right? So if you do that, you should remove, what happened there? Left H1. Yeah, so I might have to, hold on a second. I want to remove the spacing around this guy. Okay, did the vertical line disappear? What happened? I thought I had that there. What happened to my vertical line on the left? Why did I put? Oh, left P. I pasted it in the wrong place. I was wondering why it disappeared. All right, so it's supposed to be on the main left. And then the other thing we want to do is to remove on this left hand side, the P. I think there was a P here, which is this guy here. We want to remove, if you notice here, see, there is a huge space on top of this paragraph. We want to remove that space so that the Facebook logo can be close to it. So I'm going to go into the P and I'm going to remove the padding top. The padding top is 0, and then the margin top is 0. I'm going to remove those so that it closes up the space. As you can see, now the space has been closed up. So that's it. So you can ask questions. You can ask questions. This thing is very slim and nice. This text, this line here, our own is very thick. All we need to do is to use the same color. We just need to style the HR. We need to style that HR and use the same color as we use for the border. So I'm going to steal that color. Where is that color? Input color, which is this guy. I'm going to use it to style my HR, so that it becomes as nicely sleek as you can see. It has changed, right? So that's it. The color has changed. All right, so I'm going to go straight into the Google page. Questions on Facebook before we switch to Google. Questions on Facebook. Any questions? Any questions? No questions, right? Can you unmute and tell me no questions so that I can switch to Google?
No questions, sir.
No question, no question.
No questions,
All right, so
sir.
I'm going to break this into 2 videos. So I'm going to stop recording and then start it again because of